Hi there everybody, let's pick up where we left off in the last lesson. Well, now we have to save the data and display their value on the screen. So we're going to use the same process I taught you in the first project of this course. I will try to be very quick here, exactly because you have already seen most of this process and know how to do it, okay? Let's go through it quickly so that we can get to the subjects that are new here in the course. So let's go. Let's start by adding a hook for the save post method, which needs to be attached to a hook with the same name. Now let me make a correction. In the previous section of this course, in the last module, I said that you need to enter a priority number and also that this method here needs to pass two parameters. Actually, you don't need two. You can work with only one parameter, which is the ID of the post that is going to be saved. So I can keep the add action call like this, right? So let's create a method called save_post. It accepts the post ID as a parameter, post_ID. Now let's pass all those validations, those guard clauses that will check the nonce, if the post is doing autosave or not, and the user's permissions. To do this, I will also anticipate some work, copying from the previous project. Here I will change the name of the nonce, which I haven't created yet in the other file, but soon I will. The nonce's ID will be mv_testimonials_nonce. You have already seen how this works, so if you don't remember, check again the corresponding lectures in the first project, okay? Here it's still the same, and here in the permissions, I'll just change the post type key. Now let's add the code snippets that save the data. So I'll do the following. I'll paste here all the code snippets, okay? I promise you this is not something I will be doing often in this course. It's just because we have already seen all this here and it doesn't make much sense to explain it all again. If you don't want to go to a lot of trouble and stuff, you can get the complete code from the project file, right? I will paste it here and quickly explain what is going on. Well, here we do that check to see if the data is really coming from the Metabox form. And from here on, I'm creating 6 variables. Each pair of variables is for a custom field in the Metabox. The first one takes the value that is already saved in the database, a value that will only be available when I save the information for the first time. I do this using getPostMeta. It takes the data by passing the post ID, which comes through this parameter passed here in the function. It also uses the key of the field. As I said before, the ID will always match the name value of each input. And true means I want the value returned as a simple string. And the second pair is the value that comes through the form. So by doing this 3 times, I have the value of each field. A node value already saved in the database, and a new value which is going to be what the user will enter there on the post type edit screen. Once I have these 2 values, I can update the value in the WP post meta table using update post meta. Of course, I do this 3 times, 1 for each field. I need the ID of the post, then the ID of each field which will be stored in the database. Then I pass the new value and the old value. This is to compare the values and see if it has really changed. If it hasn't changed, the value is not saved. Note that the new value has to be sanitized before being submitted to the database. The first 2 fields are plain text fields, and I use sanitized text field to clean the values before sending them to the database. And the last field is a URL. I can also pass the sanitized text field, but in this case, I'll be using ask_URL raw. I already explained that in the course. To finish, let's go back to the HTML and see how the fields will be displayed on the screen. First, before I forget, I will add the input field that generates the security nonce. This is the same name I used there in the save post function. Now to show the values, first I have to create a variable for each of them. And of course, to get the value, I use getPostMeta. Once again, I will pass all variables here. It is almost the same thing we did in the save post function. The difference is that the method to get the ID is different, right? That's because here in the add inner metaboxes function, I need to pass a post object. I need the whole object. It doesn't work just passing the post ID here, right? If you want to do a real test and pass just the ID, you see that it doesn't work, okay? So here in the HTML, I can get the ID like this. And now I just need to supply each value attribute here. For the occupation, I can do it like this. That is, if I have the value of the occupation that in turn comes straight from the table through getPostMeta, I will display its value here already escaped. Otherwise, I'll show an empty string. And I can do the same thing for the other fields. I can even copy the snippet. For the company name, I just changed the variable. And for the URL, I changed the variable. And I also changed the escaping function, which in this case is ask URL, since what goes in here is a URL. And that's it. Let's test it out. I'm gonna add a first testimonial here. Person's name, testimonial. I'm gonna upload some random image. And now occupation, company, and URL. Saving this. Well, no errors. Reloading the page. Nice, the fields are still here. That means the data must have been sent to the table. We'll check it later. Let me do a security test here and try to send a script. Excellent, it worked. In the text fields, as you can see, the content didn't even go to the database. And in the URL, the sanitize function reduced everything to a single URL. One thing you can do later is to test if the value of the fields is blank and then save a default value like we did in the first project. In this one here, I chose not to make the fields required. Now let me enter a valid value for the fields again. And just to finish, I'll take a look at the database. Table WP post meta. Let me go to the end of it. And here are the fields we created, each one with the values I just saved. Wonderful. Well, folks, that was it. I apologize if I was too fast in my explanation this time. It's because I already explained all of this in detail in the previous section. In the next lesson, we'll start learning about the new subject, the Widgets API. Then I'll explain everything in great detail as always. For the next lecture, I already have created some testimonials here. So if you want to have material to test with me, go ahead and create 5 or 6 fake testimonials, alright? That will be enough, okay? So see you in the next class.